All right, everyone, welcome back and bear down. And last year we did the obsessive Connor Williams watch. This year we're going to do the obsessive Chicago Bears head coach update because that's the big news this offseason before we get to free agency. Maybe I'll put me right in the middle. See, look at that. Maybe I'm going to get an interview as the head coach. Not. But I do want to go over what we can expect next from the head coaching interviews. We'll go over this quickly, and then I'll get to some rumor at the end here. So this is how the first week of free agency went. I think everybody's pretty familiar with this, but we'll run over it real quick. Mike Vrabel was interviewed on the 8th. He's now been hired by the Patriots, so that's gone. The next day on the 9th, we had Pete Carroll, Anthony Weaver, Mike Kafka, Drew Petzing come in. Then we had Johnson and Glenn coming on the 11th, Rivera on the 12th, Brown on the 13th, Shaw on the 14th, Arthur Smith and Mike McCarthy on the 15th. And that obviously brought a little bit of buzz because we flew Mike McCarthy in. He was the first in-person interview where we put the private jet out, and there was the bells and whistles for him, and that's going to happen more this next week. You're going to see that become commonplace, so that's not going to be something that, got a little more buzz than it should have. So we move into week 2, and here's where we've been so far this week. We had Joe Brady and Todd Monken, who were both in the playoff game tonight. Obviously, the Bills won that one by 2 points. Dropped 2-point conversion, cost that one on the 17th. Then on the 18th, we had Brian Flores and Adam Stenavich. I do not understand that one still because he doesn't even call the plays in Green Bay, but Matt LaFleur does that. But still, we gave him an interview. And then Eddie George flew in this morning. Yes, I'm releasing this late at night. For those who are interested what's coming up next, Eddie George came in. He flew in. There's buzz that he could be just the in-person interview for satisfying the Rooney Rule. I don't believe that because I think this is going to drag out a little bit longer, but we'll see. If they end up hiring Ben Johnson tomorrow, then we'll know the answer to that one. But you've got these guys still in the playoffs, Joe Brady, Kliff Kingsbury, and Marcus Freeman, so they're not able to take in-person interviews. But these guys who are now out of the playoffs, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, let's see here, Brian Flores, there's a couple of them. They're all able to now be interviewed in person, so you can see that. Obviously, Todd Monken, he can be interviewed. The only ones that haven't had interviews that you've heard rumors that the Bears have requested an interview with them is Matt Campbell and Liam Cohen. I don't know why Liam Cohen, if it was true by the reporters, by beat reporters, that the Bears had requested an interview, why there hasn't been an interview done yet with Liam Cohen. That one doesn't make sense, other than the Bears probably aren't interested. Same with Matt Campbell. That's the Iowa State head coach, for those who don't know. So maybe just not interested in him, or maybe they're just trying to line up the schedules, or I don't know. There could be a variety of reasons, but we do know the ones with the green check marks have had their first interview completed. So as of this point, there's nothing big or exciting to report other than Ben Johnson can do his interview tomorrow, and many expect that to happen. But from Brad Biggs, he just talks about the ramping up, and then yesterday, that would be Saturday, the NFL's hiring cycle will hit high gear soon. In-person interviews for candidates employed by other teams can start Monday, and after a stunner at Ford Field, Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson is available. Will he pick the Bears? Latest from Ford Field. But this is the interesting thing to me, and I'm not going to post every one of them here, but Carl Williams, who is Caleb Williams' dad, and yes, I will address real quick, Caleb showed up at the game in Wisconsin. USC was playing there. Showed up with a cast on his arm. There was a cyst. Every report, multiple reports have said that's nothing. It's a cyst on his hand. It was a very routine procedure. In fact, he'll be out of the cast extremely soon. It was just to cover up the wound, apparently, and he'll be back to healthy 100%. No time frame whatsoever. He's going to be fine. So no stress over that for those who I have not reported on that. I thought it was not a big deal, but I will report on that now. But there's several. Carl Williams referencing Kliff Kingsbury on his Twitter. He went Twitter crazy today. Went absolutely nuts. So here's the big thing you'll see this week. Does Joe Brady get an interview? Does Todd Monken get an interview? Or, I'm sorry, not Joe Brady, but Todd Monken get an interview. Ben Johnson get his interview. And then next week, you see, here's the week games next week, the AFC and NFC championship games. Then there's the bye week because you have the Super Bowl. Those guys can then interview the week of January 27th, whether they win or lose. So Joe Brady, Kliff Kingsbury, they can interview this week here. Marcus Freeman can interview after tomorrow. That's the national championship game. He's Notre Dame's head coach. I think most people know that by now. But these two guys, they can both interview. So if the Bears hesitate this week and they don't hire Ben Johnson right off the bat, that means maybe they're aligned here with Carl Williams and Caleb Williams, and they want Kliff Kingsbury to come in for an in-person interview. And if he's at the top of their list, maybe they have regrets about last year with Dan Quinn and Kliff Kingsbury. We could have had both those guys. So maybe they have regrets over that. Maybe they are taking more consideration of the fact of how things went with Caleb this last year. I'm not saying at all that Caleb dictates it, But if they are looking at that and saying, holy crap, we held on to Matt Eberflus, which was a colossal F-up on our part. We did not bring a rookie quarterback in with the right management here to take care of him. And then we brought in an unqualified offensive coordinator in Shane Waldron. We could have had Dan Quinn with Kliff Kingsbury. Look what they're doing right now in the playoffs. Maybe we do want to bring Kliff Kingsbury in, and maybe they'll risk losing Ben Johnson to the Raiders or to the Jaguars, and maybe that'll happen. I don't know. A lot of things will be telling this week, but you will see buzz galore. If he's not hired right off the bat, that's probably a pretty good indicator the Bears want to at least interview with Joe Brady or Kliff Kingsbury or both. So that could be a pretty good indicator of what's going to happen. But all interviews can be completed before here. You wouldn't hear about them necessarily until probably after the Super Bowl if one of them's in the Super Bowl. Out of respect for the team, that would help narrow things down. But we could have a hire as early as tomorrow by Ben Johnson. It might not be till Kliff Kingsbury loses in the NFC Championship game, or if he makes it to the Super Bowl, or if Joe Brady makes it to the Super Bowl. I don't know. This thing could drag on. I'm kind of hoping it's Ben Johnson just for that reason alone. But I really think there might be some affinity here for Kliff Kingsbury with the way things have heated up, with what Caleb said on the pivot, or on the St. Brown Brothers podcast, and then with how Carl Williams, this is only one. He retweeted this from Captain Caleb on Twitter. Carl Williams is a fan of Kliff Kingsbury, and that was after Carl Williams was making several references to Kliff Kingsbury and reposting a ton of stuff, and then he reposted this one, which means he's obviously acknowledging it. So lots going on there. We'll see what happens, but let me know what you guys think in the comment. Is there any smoke to this fire? There usually is smoke to the fire. So this will be an interesting week, but it could be as early tomorrow. We'll keep you updated as it goes along. Until next time, Bears, and bear down.